Sean Combs stands at the defense table. Oh, okay. One of the hardest things I've had to handle has been having to be quiet and not express how sorry I am for my actions. So this is him speaking. I don't take that lightly. I would like to apologize to Cassie Ventura and her family. Joe, that's the first statement we've heard from Sean Combs in open court today, at least regarding an apology.
Yeah, he's, it's kind of like I'm standing here going, okay, keep coming, what else, right? He's saying, frankly, what's going to be expected to be said. And it's interesting, to your point, he's kind of seems to be apologizing, like in writing and sometimes towards the things that he didn't get convicted for. But we're having this whole discussion about making sure that acquitted conduct is not included. So once again, you've got these different dynamics playing out, and it's going to be interesting to see where it goes and how believable he comes out, and can he come off like it's not about him? Can he come off like it's not him being narcissistic? And can he come off understanding in the eyes of the judge, in the eyes of the public, why maybe he ought to get more time? And despite that, I'm asking you, Your Honor, to give me less time. And here's why. Is there an acknowledgement that you're not unreasonable for doing any of this? He's not going to give up the ghost on all that because they want to keep all their appealable issues. But how is he going to come off the way that he needs to come off to maximize his opportunity here?
Well, this is the next thing he just said. I apologize to Jane for bringing you into my mess. I would like to apologize to all the victims of domestic violence. Remember, he hasn't been charged with domestic violence. He wasn't convicted of domestic violence. I know that the disgusting video triggered people, meaning the video of him beating Cassie Ventura. I was sick from the drugs. I needed help, but I didn't get the help. Okay, so let me break this down in real time. Serena, so now he's apologized both to Cassie and Jane. Again, not for transporting them for sex work, but for hurting them for domestic violence. He goes, I knew better. My faith taught me better. I'm not this larger than life person. I'm just a human being. I'm trying my best. I lost my freedom and the opportunity to raise my children and be there for my mother. I lost all my businesses. Now, again, your thoughts on this, because this really is the first time he's had an opportunity substantively to make a comment about this.
Yeah, and I completely agree with both of you that he's being very specific about what he's apologizing for. And he has to. It is true. He wants to show that complete remorse without really admitting to certain things. Look, this is the opportunity and the time where a defendant who has been convicted gets on his knees and begs for mercy. Whether a judge is already too jaded to really believe him, which I would not blame him for, is to be seen, right? It's very easy to be sorry now. It's very easy to say the things that he's saying after he's been convicted. Now, I do want to say that everybody does have the right to a trial. And I don't necessarily think that him taking the case to trial should be held against him and should be deemed as him not being remorseful. But on the other hand, here he is having tried to fight all of the allegations and only now making any sort of admission to any issues. So I don't think a judge is going to be very much swayed by this newest apology, just like any other defendant.
So just to let everybody know, my battery's breaking up a little bit. I couldn't hear that last part, Serena. We're going to work on getting this fixed. But I do want to give everybody an update. So Sean Combs says, I hate myself right now. I have been stripped down to nothing. I want to apologize to my 7 children. I'm so sorry. You deserve better. To my mother, I feel you taught me better. Sierra, I go to you. As somebody who's been following this case from the beginning, what are you taking away from what he's saying?
I mean, this is a day of reckoning for Sean P. Diddy Combs, and something that we were hypothesizing before we finally were hearing the words that he was saying was that he may, in fact, point out the victims in this case and apologize. I mean, I believe we talked about that just minutes ago, and here he is doing just that. My question in all of this, I will be very interested to see what Elizabeth Milner says when she comes out, because right now she is in the courthouse, so she is there watching P. Diddy as he's saying these immortal words. I want to know his emotion in all of it. I mean, we can read the words. He's saying, I'm sorry to Cassie, I'm sorry to Jane, I'm sorry to my children and my mother. You taught me better. I threw everything away. I ruined everything. But what is the emotion there? Is it just words? Is he completely stone cold face? Or is he crying? Is he upset? And I think all of these things are something that Judge Arun Subramanian will be clocking, because I mean, that's really what it is. Is he truly sorry? Is he truly remorseful for everything that he's done? I mean, he's now been convicted of a crime here, the transportation to engage in prostitution, which, to your point, Jesse, we haven't heard an apology for all of that. We've heard an apology for the domestic violence side of things. And I mean, I will just guess that Diddy might go on for a bit longer, as it is his first time really to address all of these accounts. But I want to know the emotion behind all of it.
It's a great point, and that's obviously something that Elizabeth Milner would know, because she's inside there. She can hear it for herself. But if we're clocking this, if we're clocking that he's not directly addressing the federal crimes that he was convicted of, you know Judge Subramanian's going to say it too. He says, I let down my community. I wanted to show we could take care of our own problems. I got lost. I'm not this bad person. I'm sorry to my community. I let you all down. People can change. I know I've changed. There is a part about this, Joe, and he goes, sometimes you have to go through life experiences. These are not excuses. I can't change the past, but I can change the future. I beg your honor for mercy to be a father again, to be a son again, a leader in my community again, to get the help I need. Now, Joe, look, we're criticizing parts of this from a legal point of view. From a human point of view, could the judge be persuaded that this is a guy who's really learned his lesson, that could be a force of good, that he wasn't convicted of racketeering and sex trafficking, that while transportation to engage in prostitution is a serious crime, and there were elements of violence and drugs that were a part of it, and this happened many times, that perhaps he should not have to spend a significant portion of his life now in prison?
Here's what I say, at the risk of coming off like I'm banging on Diddy, and this is not a banging, Diddy day kind of thing for me. But if he's learned his lesson in 14 months, he'll learn it better in 2 or 3 years. And so what that means is there's got to be another reason over and above him learning his lesson. That's part of it. But over and above him learning his lesson, for him to be released more sooner than later. And that could be the force of good that he could be. I don't want to minimize that. I don't want to minimize the fact that he's, he's got ingenuity. He's creative. He has a huge platform. Everybody's going to be watching the things that he does next. And so that would have to be more the reason to let him get out earlier, because again, he knows how to succeed. And in all of these areas where he says, because of, he lost his father and it made him more likely to be a domestic abuser or whatever that was, he overcame the odds in so many other ways. So that doesn't fly either. So it's really got to be his ability to do something maybe that almost nobody else could do coming from this situation. So I'm not going to minimize the power of that and how the judge may evaluate that, but it's going to have to be that even more than just learning the lesson.
He just said, I don't want to let God down. I have no one to blame but myself. I know I will never put my hands on another person again. I'm willing to comply with any conditions. Me sharing my story is not a scheme to get less time. This story is tragic. If Your Honor gives me a chance to share my story, this has a positive impact. Thank you to the jury. Your Honor gave me the confidence in the jury to believe that I did not have to testify. They sacrificed 8 weeks. I thank them. I thank them for not guilty. Serena, back to you. Your thoughts on this?
Well, here's the thing. Sean Diddy Combs always had a platform to tell his story. He didn't need to be convicted of heinous crimes to be able to inspire people and use his power for good. I feel it's such a shame that somebody who did come from such a difficult and broken background and was able to pursue his dreams and get there, then turned around and used it to manipulate people, to harm people, people who are very vulnerable to him. And he used his power for bad. Maybe he did some good things. Maybe his children love him. That's true. But there are many, many convicted felons with children who were innocent and are always going to be innocent, waiting for their fathers or mothers to come home. He's not unique in that situation. What made Sean Combs unique is that he grew out of a terrible situation, and instead of using that to better his community and better the people around him, he used them and ended up doing these heinous crimes towards the women in his life. So I don't know that it rings so favorably to a judge that he's now telling his story in this way.
Well, he might have been listening to us, because Sierra, you know what he just said? I take full responsibility for my Mann Act convictions. They want you to make an example of me. I want you to think about making an example of what a person can do if they get another chance. Consider the beautiful children who spoke for me. Again, I've heard, sometimes we have both heard statements from defendants when they're sentenced. Sometimes it really have no impact. Sometimes they're saying the jury got it wrong, I'm innocent. Sometimes their words kind of are hollow. By the way, Sean Combs just rapped. He says, no matter what anyone says, I am truly sorry. Thank you, Your Honor. I'm curious from your perspective, does this one stand out to you, Sierra? Is it different?
I think this does stand out. I mean, just minutes ago, we were saying, okay, we haven't heard about the Mann Act. We haven't heard about the transportation to engage in prostitution. And we said Judge Arun Subramanian would be clocking this. So it seems as though this may be a strategic move on the path of P. Diddy to mention this and to say right out of the gate, hey, I'm sorry to Cassie, Jane, etc., all the people that he hurt and how. Then he talked about his family, and then now he's talking about his conviction here. And I do have to wonder if perhaps he went through and, talked it through with his defense attorneys. Hey, here's what I'm thinking of saying. What do you think I should include? What do you think I should, exclude? All of those sort of things. I think it's interesting that he says this isn't any sort of scheme here in order for me to get less time. Make an example out of me in the way that I can go on and share my story. And this kind of goes to what Serena was saying. P. Diddy was already a public figure. He didn't have to be convicted of a crime like this in order to share his story. I mean, we've seen a lot of other celebrities who have gone through addiction or things like that who haven't been convicted and then show us a positive change as a role model. So I think it's interesting, but I do think it's strategic. He brought up the Mann Act.
Okay, Serena, what did you say to me before? You go, if he might change his opinion, he might take a break. Mm-hmm. Judge says, let's take 5 minutes. 5 minutes. All right. What does that mean? What does that mean?
How much case law can...
Is he changing his sentence?
Oh, man, 5 minutes is that perfect amount of time to show that you're taking it seriously, but not yet quite enough time to really change the words that you were planning on saying. I don't think that he's going to change what he intended to say when he first started today's session. I think he obviously wants to give everybody a break. He wants the optics of showing that he is taking everything in that came out today. But it doesn't feel to me like 5 minutes is enough to really change what he was planning on saying, in my opinion.
Is that because, and if you agree, Joe, is that because what Sean Combs said was very similar to what he wrote in the letter? It doesn't change the narrative in any way. It may be different to hear it directly from Sean Combs himself. There were potential variations, taking full responsibility for the Mann Act convictions. But if you agree with Serena, is that because it's really not substantively on a whole different from what the judge already read in that letter?
Yeah, and that I think he's going to be more inclined to be moved by the letters of others and the sentencing guidelines and the things that are already in place. Anyway, the question is how much he moves off the dime from that. Again, he should consider what was said today. I think I said that earlier, but he probably had an idea what he was going to do. And P. Diddy, he himself, maybe he was the judge was tipping toward doing whatever he was going to do. And there's a question as to whether he could move it a tick one way or the other by saying what he would say. But I think he had a good idea where he was going to be. And I think that considering what other folks would have to say would probably be equally important and maybe even more so.
I believe it's fine, just said. The judge will ask you what you think, Jesse Weber. I don't think so. I don't think the judge is interested in what I have to say. What are we predicting in terms of a sentence here now that we are only potentially a few minutes away? We've been covering it all day, Sierra. We've been covering it for months now. I'll start with you. What are you anticipating for a sentence for Sean Diddy Combs after he was convicted of these 2 Mann Act violations?
I think that, per what Serena says, Judge Arun Subramanian came into this with the thought in his mind of what he wanted the sentence to be. He's going to consider it for his next 5 minutes. But if you're asking me, my prediction is still that 5 to 7 year range. I don't think that he's going to go on the lower end, what the defense wants, that 14-month sentence. I don't think it's going to be quite as long as what the prosecution is hoping for with the 11 years, which is a significant amount of time. But